Well, good afternoon and welcome back to the channel. Well, today's episode has got nothing to do with a bike ride in South America. Today I've got a special guest for this episode and we're going to talk about something different. We're going to talk to a chap, one of my good friends, who spent over 20 years in prison. But he's going to tell you how he dealt with his 20 years in prison. Now, I just wanted to say one thing before we get going and speaking to Paul. I have a certain opinion about criminals who are being convicted, or they've exhausted all avenues of appeal and they're going to be doing their time. Well, personally, I don't think they deserve 1 second of media time, or whether some sensational journalist would like to go and speak to them and get their story. When you are a convicted criminal, you should be taken out of society and not given the time of day until your release. And hopefully you may even be rehabilitated. But Paul will give you a bit of an overview on the rehabilitation. So, without further ado, I'm going to welcome you to my good friend Paul. All right, Paul, thanks very much for coming along.
Thanks, Jerry.
Appreciate your time. Now, I'm going to have this camera pointing at Paul for a while, and we've got plenty of questions. Now, Paul, I'm not going to give away your last name, and I'm certainly not going to give away where we are on the planet today.
Yep.
Needless to say, we're not in South America riding our bikes.
No.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell me, how many years did you spend as a correctional services? In America they call them prison officers. Mm-hmm. How long did you spend in the prison system?
Nearly 23 years.
Enjoy it?
Loved every minute of it.
Now, once you'd completed your induction, what was it like the first day you walked into a prison and they said, right, Paul, you're on that wing, you're going to look after those prisoners?
Scary.
Yep.
Fairly daunting.
Yep.
Just briefly, corrective services gives every officer 12 weeks intensive training. So when you're accepted, you've passed all the tests and everything, you go into 12 weeks at the Eastwood Academy. They give you a good grounding, but nothing can really prepare you for the first day.
Yeah.
They do take you into the jails to give you a look around after about 3 weeks at the academy, and that was scary enough for me.
Yeah.
We're in civilian clothes, but you come up against some pretty hard-nosed guys.
And the crims know who you are.
Oh, they know that you're the new recruits.
You're the you're the cadets on the block.
Yep, that's right. And they know when you go into the system because you've got no rank on your epaulets.
Yeah.
They're blank.
Yeah.
So they'll try and play that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a scary situation when you've never been in jail, and I've never been in jail, never walked inside a prison for anything, and it was quite daunting.
So you've never been caught for any criminal behaviour?
Never. Never committed any that I know of.
Yeah, that's even better. All right, so going on with that, what was your role when you, like your first shift, what did you have to do?
First shift was at Long Bay at the Industrial Training Centre. Which was a minimum security area for inmates that worked around the prison. You just had to supervise the inmates and take notice of the bloke with the stripes on, what he's telling you.
Yeah.
And that's when your learning really starts. The legal stuff started at the academy and you learn about that, but you're learning to deal with prisoners when your first day starts.
Now, what I was going to ask you is, I've done some reading, not much, on the prison system in New South Wales, and as a matter of fact all of Australia, to get some statistics on it. Now, what I was going to ask you is that Long Bay Jail, correct me if I'm wrong, it started as a ladies' infirmary, is it?
It did, yeah, back in a long time ago, over 100 years ago.
Yeah, and then I did see like 1914 it then become a prison for men.
That's right.
And from then on, has the prison grown into different classes of sections in the prison?
When I worked at Long Bay, which was about 20 years ago, there were 7 jails at Long Bay. Up in the main area there were 6 different prisons, each run separate to the other with their own governor. And then there was area 7, as we called it, down on Anzac Parade, which had a wire fence around it, was for C2 and C3 Class O inmates, including guys that were allowed to go out to work outside the prison. It was the minimum security area. But the 6 ones up the top with the big walls around them and the big heavy gates were all run separately. The training centre was tied in with Area 7. You had MSPC 1, 2 and 3, which was mainly for sex offenders.
Yep.
Area 1 to 4, MSPC was program type things where you had violence prevention program. Kevin Waller unit was for guys to get back self-esteem, self-harmers and things like that. You had an acute crisis unit for guys that were really in a bad way.
Yep.
And there was all a different mix. Then you had the Transit Centre, which was part of Long Bay Hospital, but it was just a maximum security area for all inmates. Nettie Smith was in there, and then you had the Special Purpose Centre around the corner, which nobody knew the names of those inmates. They were...
So if I can just put you on that one, I did see that mentioned somewhere in my reading. Someone said it was like a special purposes prison, a prison inside a prison.
Yeah, that's what it was called, the Special Purpose Centre.
Who's in there?
People that we don't know their names. They're given... Everyone's given a MIN number when they come into custody, but these guys were given a number to identify them.
Okay.
Very few people knew who they were. They were people that had to do time, but they'd given state's evidence against other inmates, and that was a protection sort of area.
Okay, all right, okay.
Special protection sort of area.
And do you agree that the taxpayer should be footing the bill to have that type of environment for the criminals to live in? I know you have a duty of care to prisoners.
We do.
And you're retired now, so I'm not putting...
Look, there was politicians, police officers, correctional officers, and those sort of people in there.
Yeah.
In that respect, they've got to be kept separate because of the occupation that they did.
And if they were let out into the main, what do you call the mainstream?
Just the mainstream, yeah.
If they were put out in the mainstream and were then, say, assaulted, they could then sue corrective services because they breached their duty of care. And
that's the reason for the Special Purpose Centre.
Okay, all right. That
wasn't only those sort of people, but you had to be very careful on putting those people in the mainstream.
Now, what about the Long Bay Hospital? What sort of characters did you get in there?
You got anybody like Ivan Milat.
He was in there?
Passed away in Long Bay Hospital after he developed cancer.
Yeah.
Roger Rogerson passed away in Long Bay Hospital after he developed whatever he developed that killed him.
Can I just ask you, did you ever cross paths with Roger?
Yes, I did.
What was he like?
To deal with as an inmate, he was very easy. He wasn't a big tough guy or anything like that. He was quite a small guy. He needed a hip replacement. He told a lot of stories, but he was easy to deal with. He was quite obliging when you gave him instructions. And he knew he wasn't going to get any special treatment.
And nor should he.
No.
Not as a murderer.
No.
What about Nettie? You mentioned Nettie Smith briefly.
I didn't have a lot to do with Nettie, but Nettie was the king outside and he was the king inside. He had the boys used to give him respect. He developed dementia, I think, in the finish. But he still had his runners doing his work for him, and he'd just sit there in the yard. And he was an old man when he came into us when I was involved.
Yeah. Now, rehabilitation. Noting that they say that near 60% of people do reoffend, who come back into prison.
Yep.
Is rehabilitation? What's your views on that in the prison?
Corrective Services spend a lot of money on various programs, and this is the way of the world now, where they want programs to address the offending behaviour in an offender. The violence prevention program, it was called the violence prevention program when I first joined, until one of the people that had done that went out and killed a police officer, so that wasn't a real good name. They changed the name to the therapeutic violence program, something along that. But look, there was success in that. The Kevin Waller program, which was the guys that were self-harming, there was success in that as well. The drug and alcohol unit at Area 7, I was a case officer very early on for an inmate who had spent most of his previous 17 years in and out of jail. And one day he said to me, I'm not coming back here. He said, I've got 3 daughters that are growing up and I'm not seeing that. He said, I'm getting out in 6 weeks and
Yep.
you won't see me again. He was a success. He had a job as a forklift driver and I've kept tabs on his MIN number and he's never come back, which is a really good success.
That's terrific, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So in those cases it works. It doesn't work for them all, but it works for some.
Yeah, true. Now, you have a bakery is that Long Bay Jail?
Long Bay Jail.
And how does that operate? What type of prisoner works in Long Bay Jail?
The bakery at Long Bay supplies most of the bread to the whole of the state.
Yeah, okay.
Within a certain area.
Yeah.
Every inmate gets Monday to Friday they get a 7-Up or 7-pack, which has got 7 slices of bread in it. That's given to them of morning with their cereal and their food. The guys that work there are normally the sex offenders out of Area 3 at Long Bay. They tend to be compliant. They work hard. It occupies their time. They're supervised by bakers.
Yeah.
And it's a full-on concern. It's a big business. And it saves the taxpayer a lot of money because they're only paying minimal wages to these guys to work in the bakery, and they're happy with that.
Yeah, that's a good idea, isn't it?
And it supplies a lot of bread to the prisons.
Yep. All right. What about gangs? Is there gangs in the prisons that you've worked at? Without naming the actual prison, because I know you worked at more than one.
Yep.
Are there gangs, and how do they operate?
A lot of gangs. In the last 15 years with the bikie wars, it changed the way we did business completely. Different gangs would play with other different gangs.
Yep.
And I won't mention who they were, but
No.
some of them didn't like other gangs. So we had to be very careful on who we put where in what jail. Virtually, the remand centre got the bigger of the gangs, but they kept them separate, and if somebody else came in from another bikie group, they were moved to somewhere else on remand until they were sentenced.
So when they come in, how do you know if someone's not trying to pull the wool over your eyes when you're doing that initial, when you're classifying a prisoner to know what ward he's going to go into or what wing? You
don't know, but it's to their own detriment if they don't tell you the truth.
Yeah.
There was an incident a few years ago. The guy I won't mention his name, but he's not long been released. And he was in a prison up north and he got involved with a bikie gang and he was moved back to Sydney for a court appearance or something he had to go through. When he got out of bed the next morning, he realised he should have told the truth when he came in because he'd got affiliated with a bikie gang and he was in strife because the wing he was in was full of bikies. And he picked the easy way out. He knew this guy was a president of one of the chapters, so he jobbed him and ran. He jobbed him and ran, and it nearly caused a riot.
Is he still running to this day?
No. Well, he probably is, but he's not giving all bikies away.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, it costs a lot of taxpayers' money to put someone in prison on a yearly basis. Paper I read yesterday, not in 2022 figures, said it could be anywhere in excess of 140,000. I think I mentioned 145,000 to house maximum security prisoner in New South Wales.
Yeah.
That's a damn lot of money, isn't it?
It is. It is a lot of money, and it's that's just in a maximum security system. And in a maximum security system, an inmate is locked up for 18 and a half hours per day.
On his own?
No.
No?
No. The cells in most of the prisons consist of 2 beds.
Yep.
Or 4 beds, or 1 bed. The 1 bed are rewards for good behaviour and for the employed sweepers that keep the wing clean and hand out the meals.
Yep.
But most of them are in double cells, 2 out, as we call them, 2 out cells.
Yep.
So you got to like the bloke you're in with because you got to spend 18 and a half hours a day with him.
Do you think it's okay for their mental health? And I'm not. The They're convicted criminals, and and as I mentioned right at the beginning, I have a certain view on giving anyone airtime who is a criminal.
Yep.
They don't deserve anything. That's it. Do you see that in the legal system in New South Wales, we know what type of penalties are imposed leading up until they get a term of imprisonment? There is fines. There are a reconnaissance to be of good behaviour, home detention, all sorts of penalties, community service orders. Do you see that after all avenues have been exhausted in sentencing, that the community are entitled to a bit of respite from this criminal, and it's time to go to jail, even if it's a shoplifting matter? Because they committed so much crime, it's time for respite for the community.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree entirely. That's what the prisons are there for, and we have a pretty heavy population.
Well, we are just behind America in the rate of people in custody.
Per capita.
Per capita?
Yeah.
Yep, New South Wales. Actually, Northern Territory is the highest.
Yep.
And on a whole of Australia, we are the next cab off the rank, and we're just behind America.
Yeah,
we may be following them.
Maybe we are. We tend to follow in a lot of things, don't we?
Okay, here's three more questions before we end. One of the these are touchy subjects. Death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
I know we haven't discussed this beforehand. That's why I thought I'd throw this one at you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There were 19 people executed in Long Bay Jail by hanging since 1914, when the men become a men's prison.
Yep.
What's your views on corporal punishment?
I personally don't agree with it. I'm not bagging our legal system, but they do make mistakes. Especially juries. Juries tend to be emotional and read papers. If we get it wrong and we hang somebody, there's no coming back from it. We get it wrong with a lady who was released not long ago she'd done a long time, 20 years, for killing her 4 kids, and she didn't kill them.
Yeah.
And I thought that from day one, but that's only my opinion, and that's nothing to do with me. I still had a job to do. But if she'd got the death penalty, and now it's proved that she didn't do it, there's no coming back from that. So I don't agree with the death penalty.
That's fine. Would you recommend a career as a correctional officer to some 21-year-old young guy or lady? You think it's a good career?
I think it's a great career. You can earn good money. You want to put the hours in.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the prison system runs on overtime because you've got holidays, you've got sickies, you've got that, you've got this. There's always overtime there.
There's a lot of leave the government hand out.
Oh, yeah, there is. But look, you deserve the leave you get too, because it's not. The environment in the prisons is not for everybody.
Yeah.
I went nearly 23 years without being assaulted.
You were never assaulted?
Never assaulted.
Didn't ever feel like, damn, I'm in trouble here?
Yes, I did, but I was never assaulted.
Talked your way out of it?
No. I had the respect of most of the powerful inmates.
Yep.
And they wouldn't let, there's a bit of loyalty there,
Yeah.
If you show respect to them, they'll show it to you.
Yeah.
They don't have to be your mates.
Yeah.
But you don't win by assaulting officers, because it sticks with you wherever you go in the state.
Yeah, and do you think that when the prisoner's in jail, his punishment is being in jail, and he should not be punished further?
That's right. We're not there to issue the punishment. The punishment is keeping them safe, keeping them in prison.
Yeah. And
that's the punishment the court has given them.
Have you ever been working when someone's decided to do a runner and escape from prison?
I've never had anybody escape. I've never been involved in an escape. I started at a jail at Silverwater not long after the helicopter escape, which is well known.
Oh, that was famous.
Yeah, it was.
Someone dropped the helicopter in and took someone away.
He's the only person ever to escape from Silverwater maximum security.
He did a good job.
He did, but they got him back 6 weeks later.
Yeah, and then I read that if you escape custody, the sentence that's imposed must be served at the expiration of the current sentence you're serving.
That's right, yeah. So
Wow.
if you get out, you're going to do extra time. That's the way it
That's a
is.
big call, isn't it?
Yeah. Most of the escapes we have
Yeah.
are for minimum security where they walk away.
Yeah.
Don't come back from work, things like that.
Well, they might have got, if they go away so when they leave prison to go on work leave, is it?
Work release, yeah.
Work release. So they're going out, what, 8 hours, 10 hours a day?
Depending on the employment they've got. Yeah.
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 And if they don't, what happens if, like, could they ring up and they say, oh, damn, you know, I got caught here I've decided after work to have a schooner with the boys. Well, I'm sure they do. This is
They do.
Australia. Everyone likes a beer after work.
Yeah.
What would happen to him? Like, it's not a real criminal act, is it?
Well, it is.
Okay, all right.
It is, because you sign a contract when you get the job.
Okay.
That you will do this and you will abide by the transport. They pay the fares for the bus and this and that. If there's a problem with the public transport that you've got to catch, you notify somebody and we'll go and get you.
Yeah.
You go.
So you can't stay back at the bat and ball at Redfern and have a schooner with your mates?
You go back and have a beer with your mates, you're going to get into stride. You'll be back in maximum security the following day.
I thought there'd be a bit more leniency in the prison system. Well, thank
Yeah,
God I've
no.
never come across the prison system. That's really good. Now, final topic, ladies' prison. Did you ever work in the ladies' prison?
I did.
What was that like?
I thought it was scarier than the men's.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
There were some pretty nasty girls in there.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I don't say I was scared of them, but there was 3 particular individuals that I would not turn my back on.
You wouldn't trust them?
No, wouldn't trust them.
There's an old saying, you wouldn't trust them with your dog.
No, you wouldn't. It was, look, the ladies' prison's quite scary because there's some tough women
Yeah.
and very hard women, and most of them have been very damaged all their lives by whatever abuse, yeah, and anything we can do to them is nothing compared to what they've put up with all their lives, and that's a real shame.
That's sad, isn't it?
It is sad, yeah.
All right.
But it's still scary.
Yeah. Well, I think I've covered every topic I possibly can.
Yeah.
I think it's outstanding to do over 20 years as a correctional officer. I've got to applaud you for that. That's a marvellous achievement. And you never got belted.
Never got belted.
You never lost a prisoner.
Never lost a prisoner.
No one went over the wall.
No.
You can, final question, I've got to finish. If you were working in the tower, they still have towers? If you're working in a tower, you've got a gun.
Yeah.
Someone goes over the wall, what do you do?
Shoot him.
On that note?
You can fire a warning shot, but then you got to shoot him. That's your duty.
That's your duty.
That's your duty.
And at that time, you'd have no idea whether he's a murderer who has the mainstream play, he can access everyone in the prison, or whether he's in for the 20th shoplifting offence.
Exactly right. You want to get out, you know the consequences.
All right, well, Paul, on that note, I want to thank you personally. Well, I hope you enjoyed a guy telling you what prison life is really like on the good side of the fence. So until next time, I think next week we are off to a different part in New South Wales. We're going to do a bit of a travel, catch up with a really special family up north. I hope you enjoyed touring with the old bloke and talking to Paul. Paul, been a pleasure. Thanks very much.